Well, good evening to all of you. It's an exciting day. Tomorrow morning we are going to start picking Pinot Grigio. At 2 a.m. in the morning, we're going to come here with our machine that straddles over the vines and pulls all the berries out and bring them to the cellar. We're going to pick between 2 a.m. until about 8 a.m. before the temperature rise, so we're going to pick at night. It's a bit cooler, and we're going to do picking Wednesday morning and Thursday morning. We're going to pick all our crop of Pinot Grigio. Here I am in this young vineyard. It's a 4-year-old vineyard. There's a beautiful crop, and the reason why I have an intruder here, this is a grape, this is a cluster of Vermentino, is for you to appreciate the fact that we can make a white wine from these grapes, and we can make also white wine from these grapes that clearly have quite a bit of pigmentation. And the word grigio or gris, which means gray, identifies that it's neither, as you can tell, it's neither a red grape nor a white grape. You heard me saying this several times. As you can appreciate, the juice flowing through is very clear, almost colorless. Here comes the seeds. And the color is in the skin. Most grapes, most red grapes don't have any pigment in the pulp. Only some grapes do, like Alicante. But also I want to tell you a little bit about Pinot Grigio. Its origin goes back several centuries when it was observed into a vineyard that had both Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Rarely there are some cross-pollination, but it can happen that some clusters cross between the two varieties. And an individual, his last name was Roulander, observed on some vines of Chardonnay that some berries had a different coloration. And what this person did, took seeds from that berry that had a different color and propagated new vines from seed. As you know, I said it before, but some of you may not recall or never heard it. The easiest way to propagate vines is to take a cutting of piece of wood, and it's very easy to make it root and germinate in the soil. From seed is a much longer process because the first year the seed makes a very small amount of growth, and then it takes longer time to create a full-grown plant. So by taking seeds, what happened is that the seed contain all the genetics of that berry. So if you go, if this person would have gone to the cluster and picked a berry that was the same coloration of Chardonnay, like this grape I have here, the plant from that seed would have given another plant of Chardonnay. But because the seeds that were crossed, he was able to, in essence, separate those seeds and create a new variety of grape. Still today, in some areas, the terminology Roulander is still used, taking the name of the individual that discovered this and propagated a new species. But most of the world grows Pinot Grigio or calls it Pinot Gris. I never grew Pinot Grigio until I came here to Virginia in 1990. I planted it the first time in 1991. And in 1992, the plants were 2-year-old. They had a very small yield. They were very young. They only had 2, 3, 4 clusters per vine, and they're very tiny. And not having a lot of grape to ripen, they ripen it very fast. And I recall picking it very early in August It was quite a few acres, but only was able to produce the equivalent of 3 barrels. So we picked it, we pressed it, we fermented, and then I didn't have a space ideal to store it, because when you produce a batch of wine, you need, after fermentation, to secure it into a container that is perfectly filled and the lid is closed, otherwise the wine would spoil, oxidize, and deteriorate. So, not having that space available, I decided in the middle of harvest to cool it down, to stabilize it, filter it, and bottle it. And not only that, but I brought it to what used to be the Monticello Wine Festival had on the lawn by the lake at the Barboursville. And and that was again, it was in 1992. So I brought it to the event in 1992, and the vintage called 1992. There were people that they didn't believe me. So how is it possible that you have a wine from this harvest? And I gave them the story, and they were very surprised, but also very pleased because it was very good. The style of Pinot Grigio that we produce here, it's driven by our climate. We're a warm climate region. There are a lot of great Pinot Grigios as well, producing cool climate region like Alsace, much cooler than, for sure, than Virginia. The style of wine is quite different. From cooler climate, they have long growing season. They can ripen Pinot Grigio in a long period of time, to the point that sometimes they push it at 13.5%, 14% alcohol. It makes a very luscious, almost tropical aromatics, a fleshy wine, of medium body. When you move to warmer climate, it ripens a bit faster. So yeah, you actually have to pick earlier, quite a bit earlier. The wine instead, in this climate, our goal is to produce a very refreshing wine not of light to medium body, very floral, with a lot of green apple aromatics, lower in alcohol, like 12.5, to be consumed at that early time, instead of some Pinot Grigio from Alsace you can age for quite a few years. It is become in Italy a very, very important grape, not just for the export, which is a very large volume come here to the United States, but we drink a lot of Pinot Grigio in Italy, especially in the northeast of Italy, in Veneto, in Alto Adige. Very versatile with food. It goes with a multitude of pairings, and in a way it's also easy to grow. It's a grape for us that we can pick in early season, ahead of everything else. The only thing that precedes Pinot Grigio for just a few days is Moscato, which we picked last week. And so tomorrow morning we're harvesting, but I want to show you one more thing we do in the vineyard before the machine comes through and they pick all what is on the trellis, of course. We have a chance still to improve the consistency of the quality by eliminating some cluster that may not be ripening at the right speed. Our staff is therefore today what we call tuning up the crop and getting ready for tomorrow's harvest. So we're going to go down at a vineyard just behind our winery. I'm going to show you what's going on. Well, I'm on my way down to see the Pinot Grigio, but as I was driving through, I saw some beautiful clusters of Chardonnay that wanted to be filmed for you. I heard them whispering, and very pretty. What is really cool about Chardonnay is that it's one of those varietals that allows you to see the seeds inside. For some reason, they have that enough transparency through the skin, and you can see the seeds in there. Gorgeous crop of Chardonnay, as you can see. I'm surrounded here by this vineyard. It's about about 60 tons of Chardonnay. It's a vineyard we planted only 5 years ago, and it has such a gorgeous crop, so evenly distributed, big clusters, perfectly ripening. So I'm excited. This Chardonnay is going to be at least another 3 weeks away from harvest, but we're set for a very good, plentiful and high quality production. So we'll come back to this vine in a couple of weeks. Let's go down to Pinot Grigio. So in preparation of tomorrow morning picking, we're lifting the nets that protected the berries from being attacked by birds. First step is to pull the nets up, and then we're gonna go through and eliminate any clusters like this one that, as you can tell, it didn't ripen at the same speed. Likely it bloomed earlier, is ripening later. Here you would have likely a concentration of sugar can be as low as 9–10%, which, to give you an idea, makes a wine that is 6 degrees in alcohol. Very, very, very tart. This instead is a cluster fully ripe in perfect condition, that the alcohol we estimate to be around 11.5–12%. The tartness is in place, the flavor are at an optimum. So that's what we do, and we're going to have a few more a cluster that we couldn't see very well earlier with the nets on. First we move the nets, and then we go through and we eliminate a cluster like this one. We could tolerate a few of those in there. It would give us more yield, but yet it would detract to the aroma of the wine, to the taste of the wine. And so no gain, no pain, no gain. Similarly here, there is a cost to produce quality, which include also sacrificing the yield. That's how you make a great bottle of wine. I'm really looking forward to start harvest on Pinot Grigio. We had a bit of rain on Saturday. Things have dried up well enough to where tomorrow morning we can successfully come in and reap the benefit of the whole season, which started last year in November when we start pruning these vines. It's a time we can take a deep breath, get it done, and rejoice that we have another fish in the box, Pinot Grigio, and then other to follow. One thing, is, if you noticed, that we posted on a Facebook page talking about this video is a food shot. We always believe that wine is meant for food, and the picture is of roasted red peppers, and then we stuff them with a combination of tuna canned in oil, a little bit of capers, a little bit of mayonnaise handmade. We make this paste looks like, and then we roll them on the pepper, which is fantastic with a beautiful glass of Pinot Grigio. So I'll see you next week, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about grapes for the next month or so. We're going to be in the vineyard likely every episode. I'm looking forward to show you more about this harvest. See you next week. Ciao.